Chris Farfoy.
Maloney, and I think this is my first opportunity to speak in the House with you and the Chair, so can I face-to-face congratulate you for your appointment, and I hope you don't read what I said about you in Hansard in my address and reply speech earlier in this Parliament. Mr Speaker, this is a bill that does have broad support across the Parliament, as Clayton Cosgrove has said earlier in his contribution to this bill, that there are advantages of the merger of the New Zealand Chartered Accountants and also its sister body across the Tasman. So we do support that in this age of a global economy where suitable and compatible regulations are going to be advantageous to both New Zealand and Australia. We on this side of the House do support any efficiencies that we can get from it. This bill was in the Commerce Committee of the previous Parliament, so I'd like to acknowledge everyone who sat on that. It was a bipartisan process, and I'd like to extend our thanks for the way it was handled by the Chair, Jonathan Young, because as Clayton Cosgrove did point out, there were some tricky issues around the exemption of particular people from the rules around or membership to membership of chartered accountants organisations, and that was a tricky one which I will get to later. There was a democratic process for the NZICA members as to whether or not they thought this merger was a good idea or not, and I understand that close to 70% of the membership who did vote were in favour of this. That's not to say that there weren't some members who were opposed to it, and they were predominantly smaller practices in rural areas, and we did hear a number of submissions from those types of practitioners, and I hope that those people who oppose the merger can be found to make sure that they are kept happy while being opposed to this merger. Mr Speaker, I did want to talk to the issue that Clayton Cosgrove brought up with the exclusive brethren. We gave them what I thought was a pretty fair hearing. You may have thought because of the past dealings with this side of the House that we may not have, but we did take a principled approach to the request that they came to the Select Committee for an exemption to be members of the professional body. Their religion excludes them from being members of other organisations if it goes against what their fundamental religious beliefs was. But the changes in this bill meant that you couldn't be a qualified accountant if you weren't a member of the organisation, which would have put them out of business. So they came to our Select Committee asking for an exemption. I think they were probably a little bit nervous because of their previous history with politics, but as Clayton Cosgrove said, we did look at it in a principled way. They did want to make sure that they were obeying by whatever rules that the organisation was going to have, and also subject to any disciplinary measures that may come about. But their religion meant that if they were members of the organisation, that their religion meant they couldn't be members of that organisation. So I'd like to thank the members of that committee and also the officials for what was a pretty tricky negotiation to try and make sure that we got the balance right. And it is an amendment to the Financial Reporting Amendment Bill, as this bill, this parent bill, has been split up into 4 separate bills now, and it was clause 36M. And there are some conditions as to whether an accountant who does hold these religious beliefs has to make sure that they meet if they do want to practice as accountants. First of all, the body has to be satisfied that the religion that the people have is bona fide, and they have to have that in written. They have to have an agreement with that body, a written agreement with that body, to make sure that they will keep to the rules, and if they do break the rules, that any disciplinary action that they may be forced upon them will be adhered to. And if at any stage the organisation thinks that that particular accountant who does have those religious beliefs isn't going to stick to that, they can have that exemption removed. This took up quite a bit of the time of the Select Committee, Mr Speaker, and again I do want to thank the officials because it did perplex us. There wasn't a lot of precedent floating around. It obviously was a tricky issue with the issue of religious beliefs, but there was one similar exemption in a piece of labour law which we very much looked at closely, and I think we came to what was a very happy place for the members of the committee itself, and also those businesses who came to submit to us. Mr Chair, as Clayton Cosgrove said, this is a piece of legislation that we agree with. We now hope that the new Commerce Minister has some time to look at other things in his new portfolio area. I do understand he is outside of Cabinet, so he may not get the impetus that we would want from a Commerce Minister, especially around the area of what was in the Credit Contracts Reform Act that was passed last year around loan sharks. I hope that would be a priority for the new Minister of Commerce. It was the previous government of the previous term that didn't take any action on putting interest rate caps on loan sharks, and I would hope that the Minister, now that this bill has been completed, might be able to take a fresh look at that in the 51st Parliament to make sure that those loan sharks that are out there terrorising the most vulnerable people out in our communities, charging the most exorbitant interest rates, that the new Commerce Minister might be able to look at that. Mr Speaker, as we have said on this side of the House, this is a piece of legislation which we know will be beneficial for New Zealand. The industry wants it on this side of the Tasman, as does the accountants' organisations on the other side of the Tasman. We hope it will open up new business opportunities for us. We understand that might also create some new jobs here in New Zealand because the new Omni organisation may set up its back office here in New Zealand. We think that is obviously one of the spin-offs to making sure that these two sets of regulations, both here in New Zealand and Australia, can be closely related. But as I say, now that this piece of legislation has been disposed of, or will be disposed of very soon, we hope that the new Commerce Minister can get some new legislation through the Commerce Committee, which now the Honourable Maurice Williamson is now a member of, and I look forward to having many a robust discussion with him. Today we talked about stereos in Fiji from the 1970s, so I look forward to his colour and his incisive mind on the Commerce Select Committee from now on. But Mr Speaker, this is a piece of legislation that has, I believe, has cross-party support, so Labor will support it, but there are some reservations. Cheers.
The Honourable Maurice Williamson.
Mr Speaker.